Super Good Capstone Podcast! Welcome to the Super Good Couch Time Podcast. My name's Tyler.
I'm Cyrus.
I'm Wyatt.
I'm Luke.
And today we're going to be talking about a couple things, maybe a couple things, depending on how much time we have, because this is kind of, once again, we're not going upon a script, but we are going to be talking about esports.
Yeah.
Because esports is kind of growing a lot in the last... News
on ESPN, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dota 2.
Dota 2 is going to be on ESPN, or is it already on ESPN?
It's already on ESPN.
Yeah.
The
I don't know if it's
internationals.
regular.
The internationals this year were on ESPN.
Wow.
Is it already over?
I believe so.
Oh, yeah.
It's very impressive. I know for all of us as gamers, we're kind of intrigued by this idea of esports. The naming convention of it may not be preferable to all of us, but I know for one, watching just personally watching esports, it's a lot of fun. It gets you into whatever game that is being presented, and yeah, I don't know. I really enjoy it. Just kind of give a background on esports. Esports kind of, I don't know how long it's really been around, but I know...
Since StarCraft.
Yeah.
The first one.
The first StarCraft was definitely a big one, especially in Korea.
Oh, yeah.
From what I've gathered. It's just been growing and growing and growing since then. I mean, it started getting really big with Halo. Call of Duty started picking it up, and it got really famous with Call of Duty, and now League of Legends. League of Legends has kind of veered away from going through MLG, which MLG is the typical place where everybody does esports.
Like, I find it funny how you go on MLG and you just see, like, Call of Duty Ghosts Championship. I'm like, eh.
Does anybody watch that?
There's like
I don't
10
know.
people at a time.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Sydney?
Instantly calling out the people in the back.
Always. Every time you're on a podcast, always call out the people in the back.
It's like
Sucka.
if we ever have a cameraman like following us around, we're always gonna say his name. Or her name.
Like before Slick was on Line Detectives,
Yeah.
he'd always say Slick, and no one knew what he was talking
We're
about.
just going to be like name dropping for this whole show.
MLG.
Who was it last week?
Linus.
It was Melanie Mac last week.
Really nice, yeah.
No, Linus.
I haven't.
He has a tattoo of Linus too.
So right on my thigh, like just right next to
Thigh.
right next to Melanie Mac, because apparently last week she was on my thigh, so he's right next to her.
None of us have witnessed these tattoos. Tyler just tells us about them all the time.
Okay, so to give you a background on what MOG is, obviously MOG stands for Major League Gaming. I believe it started off really. It was kind of an interesting start. I can't remember the exact the way they started up, but something had to do with like just basically started the tournament and started getting big from there. I mean, as you can imagine, that's the way it started. But to where it is now, to where like MOGs are becoming a very well-known thing, and it's almost becoming people are less and less wanting MOG because you got like ESL, which I believe hosts.
Yeah, they host a lot.
What does ESL stand for? I forget what it stands. Like I follow them on Twitter, but I don't remember what they stand for.
Something League, maybe?
Yeah, and then you have League of Legends, which is like Riot Games, they
Like
host League
Sports
of
League.
Legends.
Sydney is Googling. Sydney is Googling.
That's what you're here for, Sydney.
She's
Hurry it up,
a
Sydney.
resident
Hurry
fact
it up.
checker.
But as far as where we are now, like
Fact
I know
checker.
all of us.
Magazines have them. Why can't podcasts have them?
I know all of us have been kind of debating whether we want if we like the name esports. I know Luke and I have had.
We've had a number of
conversations.
conversations about that.
Yeah. On that note, what do you guys think of the name? Like give your ideas on the name. Like I don't care. We're not going to order this. Yeah.
Alright, I don't know. I personally kind of like the name esports. I think it takes a lot of skill and a lot of practice. It's not necessarily moving around like most sports are considered to be, and like I've heard it. I believe it was the head guy of ESPN compared it to chess. It's a competition, but there's so much into esports. Like it takes so much time, so much effort, so much practice, so much like muscle memory and movement that I would really consider it like more of a sport because it's more of a skill. Like
I have to agree with you because it's more of a competitive sport than chess is. I mean, chess is competitive, just not to the level where audiences are like, yeah, every time he makes a move.
Oh, he moved the rook!
Yeah. So on the competitiveness level, I think it's equal to sports. That's why it's an e-sport.
it's equal to sports.
What the E stands? I gotta say, I'm probably the least familiar out of us with esports. I don't really get into watching it that much, but I am in support of it. I gotta say, it's good to see gamers finally being able to do something on a sort of a higher level
Protect them,
than just the escapism or the time killer that games can be. I can't read that.
It's an E side.
And
Like
actually,
bigger
Electronic
phones.
Sports League.
The Electronic Sports League.
That's what I
There's
thought.
our
it
answer
was.
on the
Yeah,
inside. But I gotta say,
it's so tiny.
just comparing on sort of a business level to major sports leagues and things like that, there are a very select few to whom it can be more than a game. I know, these like football players that are making millions every year to play a game on TV. That's what they're doing. It's very similar with esports to me. It's a sport. It's a sport on a professional level to a select few, and to everyone else, it is still a game.
and it's,
I guess that doesn't really address the question. I think esports is a pretty fitting title. The E in there sort of sets it apart from any sort of physical activity, I think.
yeah.
If you were to just call it a sport on its own, like,
It'd be a hard one.
yeah, like you're not gonna see like high school League of Legends teams probably in the near future.
Actually, I got some news on that, but I'll save that for later.
Oh man.
I know out of all of us, I've kind of I've had a very hard time accepting the name as esports.
Accepting.
Like just in general, I never really felt like it was sport. I mean, sport would incline doing physical activity, but I guess that the more and more you dive into the definition of sport, like I guess it matches. And I'm coming more and more to being okay with that name because it has been thrown around so long and it's been becoming a thing. And the fact that MOG, basically trademarked their name and they basically couldn't pass that around. Because I feel like Major League Gaming was a more fitting thing as a broad name for it. Because that's what it is. It's you're at a major league, you're at a major level of gaming.
Right.
We can't deter because it's so early in its stages, like less than 10 or okay, it's been almost like 10 or 12 years now. That esports has been a thing, but that's not enough time to prove whether it's a sport or not. And I think all the other sports have had time well into 50 plus, even 100 years to prove it to be a sport.
Oh.
And I think it's a matter of timing.
Yeah. For me though, honestly, like the term Major League Gaming, it's still, I don't know. I feel like esports is giving it like this platinum title and making it official, whereas Major League Gaming, people still look at it as like, oh, you're just still a gamer.
I think
Whereas
it's because it's got gaming in the name.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
and-
like, oh, this is still for entertainment purposes. Like,
Yeah,
we're
and
doing
I
this.
understand that, but that's what it is at its core.
I think we're really just arguing the definition of what the sport is.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Like,
and I don't know. Well, then it's like, well, how much money does it bring in?
no, absolutely.
Millions.
Yeah, and it's like, what makes it legitimate? Like, you're saying time, we're saying more competitiveness, money-wise.
Well, I've got to say, maybe we should assess. I mean, if there's a difference in the level of competitiveness and skill required for the type of game, but if someone was to play like one of the Madden games professionally, would we still call it a sport? I mean, it's
Or
like
an
a
esport.
sports-themed video game,
That'd
or
be
an esport.
extremely ironic.
It would be ironic,
Esports.
but I mean, sort of the context
I-
is different with that. Like,
Yeah, and I still kind of stand by, time is going to be the benefactor of what it's going to be actually. And because honestly, I don't think esports is going to stick. I just personally don't think that. I think eventually, because it's already changed, because people used to call it MLG. Like that was the coined term for any type of professional level game.
Cybersports had a short stint as the title as well.
Yeah, and I think over time it will finally develop a whole name to where everybody can kind of accept it. And obviously, this is just the name of it. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It is what it is. People are playing games at a professional level. Now, they're not being paid. I don't know for sure. They're not being paid a paycheck every time they're playing, because that's the difference between the sports that we have now and the esports that we have. They're doing
League players
Are league players now? Okay, because it used to be they would do competitions to
Yeah.
make money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was more season 2, season 1.
Yeah, well, if once it starts getting into that and players getting paid, I feel like players are going to be they're going to be the more voice of what it's going to actually be called, because they're the ones doing it. I don't think any of us have room to say what they're doing, because that's who's doing it. They are.
It's also a difference is that technology is constantly evolving, and compare that to normal sports.
Where they've been doing the exact
They've
same
been doing
thing for 100 years.
Yeah, and
They have been making trouble. I haven't been there, but continue on.
in like regular sports.
Like, for example, baseball, this seems archaic, but they added a challenge system to where they have a hub in New York,
Oh,
to where if there's a bad play called, only at plates, not strike zone or anything that's based upon umpire. Because in the most purest form, that's what baseball is. It should be based upon what the umpire says, because it's human error that you're fighting against.
yeah.
But now that it's coming, technology is evolving. Even the sports are saying, look at football. They have the cameras flying over the middle of the field.
And but also with esports is that it could be an entire genre change.
Yeah.
Like the rules totally change as compared to baseball. The elements of baseball are still the same.
Whereas
Right.
with
Unless they stop hitting a ball with a
So
stick.
yeah, we're gonna So
Yeah, like with esports, you could have first-person shooters and
Yeah, and it'll
MOBAs
be a
and stuff
MOBA.
like that, and then you'll have RTSs maybe, and
competitive sandbox.
And that's another challenge.
MLG Minecraft.
It's just
guys.
Hunger Games, guys. Come on.
Yeah, that's going to be another challenge for esports in the future anyways, is these multiple genres. I mean, genres have multiple games in them. Obviously, there's not just one first-person shooter.
yeah.
See, there's something to assess too, in that with sports, every game is different. They're all under the umbrella of sports, but cybersports sort of take the same esports. Sorry, I've been calling it cybersports for a long time, and then esports sprung up, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm wrong.
You are wrong.
It's interesting to see that it's basically sort of the same hierarchy in a different context. So you've got mainstream sports. You've got okay, you can watch football, or you can watch baseball, you can watch basketball. They're all very different in their sets of rules and their goals and their just very different. And then you've got sort of the same thing going on in esports with people playing FPS games and people playing MOBAs. Really not a lot else.
What about FPSs?
There's RTSs.
MOBA FPS? Oh yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They have StarCraft, so that's an RTS.
There you go. So you've got sort of the same hierarchy of this this overarching category with lots of subcategories. That could define it as something different, just in the fact that it's a totally separate entity.
And let me ask this another question, because obviously Dota was being very well known for going to ESPN. Do you think that
There's thunder outside.
Woo!
Holy.
I didn't realize how cloudy it was. Okay, continuing on with
In case you didn't hear that, there was lightning and thunder
welcome
right
to the
outside.
Super Good Thunder Couch Time podcast.
Whoa.
Okay, so despite the
Sydney's
awesomeness
about
that's
to freak out. Let me explain something.
We
really
brought
quick.
the thunder.
I'm going to interject here. California has been in a drought for the past 6 years, and we have not seen rain all summer. So if it rains right now,
You might just-
have to rain in the summer though.
We'll probably continue the podcast for the same.
Still, we're in a drought, bro.
Okay. Back to the
thank
podcast.
you, the viewer, for bringing the rain.
Bringing the rain, baby.
I don't know how many of you do rain dances while watching our show. sometimes we do in review.
We got caught. This is a major.
Tyler
segue.
mostly.
Anyways, but back to the topic of MLG. Do you guys think that national TV is going to be good for gaming? Because in my personal thought, like, I think that TV is kind of a dying, I don't know, area of entertainment. Because I don't go to my TV to read the news anymore. I mean, to look at the news or to get my information. I go to the internet because I figured as much as you're gonna have to sift through different things through the internet, there are credible sources, even if it's sources that used to be on TV or still on.
And there's all the different sides on the internet too. You're not just getting what the news
Is
channel
provided.
is saying. You also get every single side of it.
And then, I mean, coming to esports, it's like, well, why? I mean, no one. I don't feel like anybody is gonna watch it on national TV. It may be convenient for certain gamers to watch it on TV, like maybe gamers who have like a family and they watch things on TV.
I think it's more trying to prove to the older generation that this is
it's-
legitimate.
Yeah, that is.
And it's like, okay, that's why it's on national TV, and so that's really the reason why. That's what I.
Yeah, I feel like it's. You're right. It could be like just a proving statement. I don't feel like it's gonna last.
It's not gonna last.
I would
because
I would be curious too to see what the demographic that typically watches like ESPN and is broadcasting Dota.
yeah,
Um,
that'd be interesting.
Curious to see what the age demographics would be about who typically watches it. I know amongst my acquaintances, it's a lot of like middle-aged men. They watch football but then a lot of families that are into sports too. So I'd be curious, but you don't really think that the people who are typically gonna just turn on ESPN in the afternoon and expect sports broadcasting are gonna particularly enjoy turning it on and seeing a video game. So I wonder how long it will last just because of the complaints of people who watch it casually.
Yeah.
And
Maybe they're not out there. I don't know. I'm not a sports watcher myself. But
It's gonna be hard for people. Like, I mean, maybe there's someone who's like, oh, there's this gaming thing on TV, and I've never really been into that thing. So what if I start watching it? They aren't even know anything about Dota.
Yeah.
you learn throughout it though, because I knew practically nothing about Dota and StarCraft, but like after watching a couple of the things, I was like, oh, hey,
Yeah,
I kind of know how to play this.
Yeah, that is true. I mean,
Right.
you probably get to understand, but it's like, I feel like the only reason why a lot of us know anything about sports, like professional sports, like baseball, football, soccer, whatever, is because we all kind of grew up playing those as a kid. We always kind of got the basics as a kid, whereas like this is totally foreign to someone who's never played games.
If you weren't raised on it, then you're not. And it's that whole generation gap that we have going on right now.
It's a huge
It's
gap.
going to
If you think about it.
there might be another gap between us and our kids. I mean, we don't know. It's
Right.
technology is so finite. It's changing so much that I don't know. It can't be established.
Yeah, you think that like 30 short years ago, the extent of competitive gaming was making sure your high score was on top of the arcade. That was it, and it wasn't done seriously. There was nothing to be gained other than that.
Now that I kind of think about it, that would probably be more of the origin of esports. In MLG is because have you got there's a documentary I watched on Netflix. It was about the arcade scene and the professional level arcade scene.
Yeah,
Pretty
that's
cool.
I don't remember what it's called, but
that's something I would rather call MLG than like esports. I think for me, like the way I think about the two names, I think that would fit more into MLG because it's like it's not like they're doing it for a paycheck. They're not doing it like necessarily as competitions, which they did get into that.
Like, did you?
But it's not like this big thing.
Yeah. Did you guys watch the movie Wreck-It Ralph?
Yes.
Do you guys remember the arcade guy that had the ref jersey on?
Yeah.
That was a real thing. That's where that came from. That documentary I was talking about. There was an actual guy who used to wear a ref jersey at these things. So he'd be he be watching if the gamers are breaking the game, making sure they're not, and making sure that the system's running fine, making sure that technical things aren't going to go bad.
Yeah,
But
awesome.
it's really cool because I mean, that's, I would say, would be more of the origin now that I think about it. I don't know where we're going with that, but it was just kind of an interesting thought.
Here's something
Right.
that we can all talk about. Favorite esport. So, like, favorite game pretty much that is currently played at a professional level.
Easily CS:GO.
CSGO?
Easily.
Okay.
Ninjas in pajamas for the win.
Okay. I'll go next. League of Legends, obviously, and Cloud9. Yeah, Cloud9. Hope you guys win your votes.
Halo. Unfortunately, Halo's been kind of on the back burner with MLG
We're
for
neglected for a long time now.
started the FPS genre, right? No, there isn't really a team I can follow right now because there isn't any established team. Because ever since the kind of the disband from MLG and stuff like that, the teams have been kind of separated. Other than the last tournament that just happened, that 343 put on with ESL, which is cool. Like, I really hope they continue doing that. But it was actually Team Excellence, so anybody who knows like Halo, MLG, got like Pistola, and all these other guys that were on there. But I don't know. Yeah, for me, Halo. Probably fun.
I'm gonna be the black sheep here because I don't watch esports. But as far as what I have seen, just I've enjoyed watching. We watched the movie Free to Play. I enjoyed watching that with all the Dota action. But it was really more about the teams and the process leading up to the international. So that was really interesting to me. And I've enjoyed what I've seen of Halo tournaments and CS:GO tournaments and things like that. So it's an interesting thing to me, I must say, and this is going to be sort of a wrench in the works of our show here. I do not see myself.
Another one?
Yeah, yeah. I do not see myself getting into it. I don't think I could become a dedicated watcher of esports. As much as I am in support of it, I don't think.
Well,
I
do
can
you watch
it.
regular sports?
No.
There you go.
I mean, I think
Which is another reason why it's an esport.
yeah.
Because if you're not gonna watch regular sports,
you probably won't watch.
then you probably won't watch. Yeah, you probably. I like video games more than I like playing sports as a kid.
Do you think it'll ever
Yeah.
come to the point where it's called a sport?
I think it's already
yes.
being called a sport.
I think
just
by us, by our age group, I think
Graphic.
Yeah.
I think we call
I
it.
think
sport. I don't know
eventually
any
it will-
opponents.
Like I said, the name will find a place
It'll-
eventually, but and it could be, I don't know, but like I know predominantly I watch like baseball, so that kind of influenced like why I really enjoy trying to follow up with these teams, especially since it is a relatively new thing on like a mass level. Like it's so new, like at the level that it's at right now, people don't know where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
Like understanding who players are, like in no other like professional sport has there been cross team and cross genre. So like Ninjas and Pajamas, that's also a team from League of Legends, not just CS:GO. Cloud9, they just took on a guy who does Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
It's like that's another thing that I'm kind of curious to see how that pans out because it can get a little muddy. Like Curse has, I think Curse has a team for everything.
Probably.
Samsung has Samsung Blue and White. They have two teams in Worlds.
Crazy.
And so it's like,
I didn't even
Well,
Samsung
we
had a
look-
team.
yeah, they're from Korea and they're dominating. But the first Worlds of League of Legends had 100 people just in the crowd, and the next one's in Korea. It's in Seoul. It's a huge stadium, and it's growing so fast.
Yeah, and League of Legends, without a doubt, I think is it's just hitting peak after peak after peak. I mean, I know League of Legends out of all of the esports is predominantly the most watched.
You know, something that just occurred to me is I think part of the reason there's so much lack of clarity about esports and sort of defining it and what it's eventually going to come to be. It is completely comprised of youth. You know, you don't see a lot of people
Yeah.
older than maybe their early 20s
Well, it's kind of like any sport though. A lot of sports they take like guys.
Well, but I mean, like you see like football teams. They've still got guys
Who are
in their
like
30s
40s,
and 40s.
Whereas like this is just kind of a
So
study.
there's really not a lot of maturity within it. So
Well, this is
you
also.
know, you're gonna see the people that are involved now still doing it into maybe their 30s and 40s, and we'll start to see a little bit more of a definition come together.
Yeah, and
because they've been in it for a long time, you know.
That relates to Tyler's definition of time.
Right.
Is that
It will
it's
eventually.
too young yet to really know
So-
where it's going to go.
The definition of what it is, how it's going to be, and how it operates is still yet to be seen because it changes every year.
Right.
Whereas like sports, they're established because that's what works best. And they don't rely on years of tradition because it's tradition. They rely on it because it works and it works efficiently. They're now having to challenge some of that stuff because of the rate of technology, but esports was born in technology. And that sounds kind of like an insurance. We're born in tech, but like that's really what it is though. Because that's where it's always going to move with technology. So there is going to have some established traditions for esports in order for it to actually grow. I feel even more because once it hits that, it keeps hitting these peaks, and League of Legends is kind of laying the foundation of it. I feel for other games to go off of, and personally, I think it's because Riot Games has full control over
Yeah,
it.
you know they have a fantasy league, 4 league.
Really?
Yeah.
I was just gonna bring up a joke about that, but now that it's
And
a
they
reality, I'm
actually
like,
They have world championship brackets right now, like March Madness.
oh,
Nice.
why?
You guys look at it with shame, but a lot of people are doing it, and it's like, which brings more legitimacy to it. So it's like,
I mean, it'll definitely keep you up to date on what's going on.
Yeah.
My friends put me in a fantasy football league. I have no idea what's going on. I just know what gets me scores.
yeah.
So I gotta say, here's another thing I was just thinking about. With the advance of technology, sort of the advance of culture has had a much shorter half-life. Things change at a much more rapid rate. Music is changing, and film is changing. Everything is changing quickly because we have quicker access to it. You know, movies are being released out of theaters onto Blu-ray and digital quicker and quicker and quicker. So they're coming out at a much more rapid rate. You know, you're seeing new movies come out month after month. You used to see sort of seasons where movies would come out and be in theaters for a couple months in a row even. And now they're just in and out and on store shelves. The same thing is happening in the gaming world. You know, with distribution all being digital now, you've got such instant access to it that it needs to evolve quickly in order to keep people interested.
Right.
And so that may be the case even with esports, that they won't really develop into so solidly a cultured thing as sports are. You know, there's a reason that after 100 years we still think about people selling peanuts and hot dogs at baseball games. It's part of the culture, but that may be different with esports.
Selling Timo hats and
Well, just in the way that it evolves, we might see MOBAs disappear here. And
oh my god.
And some other game come fill that gap in the esports world.
Yeah. And yeah, it is that cool. It's gonna take the time. I keep bringing up the whole time aspect of the game. I'm talking myself.
No, but I think that's kind of the aspect that it comes down to.
Yeah. It's so young. It doesn't really have an established place even in anyone's eyes yet. Like, I still as a watcher of esports, I still can't take it 100% seriously. That's still a problem. I love Halo, like I was just saying, I love Halo, but there's still a certain seriousness and professionalism.
He's back.
Speaking of professionalism,
Now I'm ready to talk about esports.
All right.
but there's a certain amount of professionalism that has to go beyond, like, I just remember watching the last Halo tournament. It was just like, number one, they were having technical issues. That's normal. I mean, like, and if anybody had technical issues, that was the way they handle it. But it was just like, I felt like I keep seeing you in the corner of my eye.
Right. We're going downhill fast with this. Now that you've got the
Okay.
Okay. I better take that off.
Alright.
But like I feel like the casting, the screen casting needs to be taken more seriously. Like I felt like League has gotten really good at it because those guys have had a couple years now to kind of do it, whereas like Halo kind of has to establish itself again. I imagine CS:GO is probably pretty professional because
Yeah,
a lot of the games that have been getting a lot of attention lately, especially in the last 3 years, they're getting more and more professional
I
in
mean,
how they handle it.
the difference between the shoutcasters between like 3 years ago and now is just like, all right, well he's attacking that guy over there, and that was all the shoutcasting.
Well, yeah, and that's because a lot of them didn't know a whole lot about
They,
League.
yeah, they didn't know much, and now they even say it, like we were horrible back then,
Yeah.
but
It is really
it's been enough
interesting
time.
to watch like older MOG games from like 2004 and stuff like that. And, obviously, I watched Halo, but they definitely had something fairly well established, like almost before their time. It was like they had something really cool going on, even if that meant that a bunch of guys were sitting in front of CRT TVs playing professionally. Like it worked, and they were very professional about it. So
let's reiterate that. CRT TVs, professional.
Ooh.
Whoa. I gotta say though,
with response rate.
I don't know what that is. So
That's
Like,
okay,
two
too.
TVs.
what?
It's the really big ones.
the old ones with the
Oh.
curved screen
Oh,
They're called
It's okay.
from ancient
It's okay.
times.
It's okay,
I'm
you're
pretty
young.
sure like 50% of our videos say more.
Yeah, oh yeah, if you're,
So
if
I
you're
was like
15 and younger, CRT TVs were these TVs that had giant back ends. You look like you're 15 with that hat on.
It stands
It's the
for
hat.
cathode ray tube.
True.
Anyway,
I gotta say, with sort of the uncertainty about the future, I'm definitely seeing a lot of like buzz and excitement being
Yeah.
present with esports.
absolutely.
Gamers
It's a
are
bright future. It's an absolute bright.
Gamers are getting a foothold sort of in this in the entertainment world outside of just being entertained themselves. And I gotta say, if you are into esports, stick with it because it's gonna be kind of crazy, like seeing it develop for the next couple of years. But it's part of founding a new culture, which is an amazing thing to be a part of in many respects.
We are the esports hipsters.
Yes. Question for both of you who
I'm not.
actually
They are.
do watch and like esports. Chat. Do you
It just
think,
brings a smile on my face.
do you think there should be a chat system in watching esports? Because personally, I feel like there should.
I don't
it's
think
it's
so.
very frustrating to watch because it's just like people just gonna be idiots. To be idiots.
I get
Like a lot of
so
people,
many gifts from the chat, so I don't know.
a lot of people troll the chat so much though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
if it's going to be like a professional sport and if it's going to be a professional
Go
thing,
on.
I don't think there should be a chat because like in sports, there's no chat. You bring all your friends over to your house and then you chat, but you
Yeah.
don't have a little chat box.
And I feel like that's gonna be a thing to start growing because I know
That is the thing. We did that with the season 3 World Championships. Is that we all went over to Josh's house and we watched that, and
And it's
we're
gonna-
gonna do it.
it's gonna
this year,
be a
too.
continuously growing thing.
It's like a Super Bowl.
Because
Yeah.
number one, the quality that's being presented is very high. Although I'm a little disappointed with Riot half the time.
You know,
I'm always disappointed with Riot because it always seems like they always go like a little below what I think they could do. Like their streams are still on 720p.
how's that Halo going for you?
What is
It was in
this?
1080p and 60 frames per second.
What is this?
It's a fanboy for
2012.
Halo.
Even Super Smash Brothers, the new one, is in 1080p 60 frames per second. Same with Mario Kart.
Take that, Riot.
On the Wii U.
Oh.
Yeah.
The game that
I don't
runs
know
at
what-
25 frames per second when it's in 4-player, like, when it's in split
I don't know what watch_dogs is doing.
screen.
Mario Kart's running at 60 frames per second, 1080p on a Wii U.
That is awesome. the specularity master. But no, I feel like if you're gonna be an esports broadcaster, there's gotta be number one something that has to be done with Twitch, to where bandwidth and everything is no longer an issue. I know, like as technology grows, that won't be a problem, and quality won't be a problem. I mean, I don't expect to see 4K streams anytime soon, but that would be nasty.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that yet.
Yeah, I mean, fiber optics coming around. I don't know if you've had like AT&T or Google in your area yet. We've started to see AT&T do some stuff around here.
Whoa.
We're gonna get gigabit internet speeds. It's not gonna be an issue anymore.
And that, I feel like
Wi-Fi routers are getting better and better. People will even be able to do it without hardwire.
that's obviously the route it's going to go, and eventually it'll reach this point where it's like it's being taken completely serious. Because I believe it will. Dependent on how gamers present themselves.
Well, and once again, these people who are sort of the kids founding this are going to grow up, and esports are kind of going to grow up with them because they're the founding generation.
Yeah,
So,
like the arcade gamers, like they're not even in video games.
So, I mean,
This is a whole
chat
new
boxes
generation.
are going to disappear when all of the people growing up with it stop trolling. You know?
They grow up. Yeah.
I mean, it's even more concerning.
Ever.
They go to Neverland.
It's yet to be seen.
I don't know. Yeah, and once it reaches that point, like I feel that gamers will definitely have a foothold. Like kind of like game theorists.
Yeah.
If none of you have actually watched the Game Theorist channel, check it out. And if I could recommend a video, it's what is it, the World of Warcraft?
Yeah, gamers will save the economy.
Yeah,
It's about
gamers will
World
save
of
the
Warcraft.
economy. I feel like it's just a matter of time, and I know this is not necessarily related to esports, but like it's a matter of time before gamers are taken seriously and they're actually being like their thoughts and ideas are being considered in our culture and society. I mean, it's already starting to happen, like at very small levels, but I think it needs to be better because I don't think it should be taken so lightly, just as kids who waste their time playing games. Now, I do believe that there's moderation with everything you do when you're playing.
Yeah.
When you're playing a game, it should 100% consume your life.
Yeah.
It's a form of entertainment, not a form of like no word, I'm lost.
And we're still dealing with the perception of the first generation to have video games in their home. Some of whom are still in basements playing Mario, you know? Like
Yeah. Just like there was
that's all we're gonna say about
Yeah,
that.
there was somebody who like just recently got into the MLG scene and got a new high score on Mario. Like it hadn't been broken in years, and this kid comes along like 2-year noob in the MLG scene and just wrecks the high score in Mario, the very first Mario Brothers.
That's amazing.
And I'm like, I didn't know that was still possible.
Props to that guy.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, especially if he did it completely authentically.
And then he broke his record again.
I'm curious as to what sort of variable stores the score in Mario, because it would be great if somebody broke the game because
Got
the score was
minus.
too high.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's assigned into
Jumps over
that's
the
minus.
flag.
Right.
Yeah.
That's our challenge to you.
Have you flag? All right. Well, to kind of conclude this podcast, esports, what it is now, I feel like it definitely has a bright future. Right? It's 100% on the up and up.
Yeah.
There's no really stopping it either. I don't know if you guys have any other concluding points, but
Just that it's got some growing up to do, but stick with it through that because it will pay off. You know, if nobody does, if everybody gets tired of the sort of childish perception and gives up on it, then it will not evolve and it will not grow into what it could be.
and if you're watching this, think about this. Like, you're really into esports. There could be jobs in that someday.
Yeah.
There could be jobs. I mean, as there are jobs in like what we're doing is we want to be game developers. There's jobs in that no one thought were even possible like 30 years ago. But like, give it, I say, even 10 more years of just solid growth.
Yeah.
Jobs will open up in that area, and yeah, that's awesome.
Do you have something to
Yeah.
say on that point? Okay. Because I was gonna say, if anyone's watched to this point, tell us what you think. Is esports like a real? Should it be called a sport? Is it worthy of the title of esports?
And on that note, like where do you think it's gonna go? What do you see that esports will develop into?
Tell us in the comments.
And like and subscribe.
Trolls are cool.
All right.
Were you gonna say anything?
No, I think that you guys pretty much covered everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Luke doesn't talk. He's
Talked.
no, he doesn't talk at all. Like you don't understand. We
He
keep him in a
wears
cage.
lol hats.
So we're super good entertainment.
We keep these two in a cage.
This is couch time.
Couch time.
Thanks for watching.
And that's it.